Joined now by Bernie Moreno, candidate for the United States Senate, running in Ohio, and he ran 2 years ago, and he dropped out, and he is now in a two-way race with Matt Dolan. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. I'm a slacker compared to you. I've only been married 34 years, so I got to catch
You
up.
got to keep. You'll never catch up. Bernie, that's how long, 34 years. That's a diversion. Let me go back to something I wanted to ask you. Do you know my buddy David Zavagno in Cleveland? Is Zavagno a buddy of yours?
Yeah, I know him, yes.
Yeah, but he took me out to Rattlesnake Island, and I think I met you there in 2013 during the bicentennial of the Battle of Lake Erie. Would that be correct? Were you there for that?
I was. That's correct.
That
Great
was the
spot.
craziest day on the lake in my life. That they thought they were doing the reenactment of the Battle of 1813. It turned out to be the reenactment of Dunkirk. Did you go out on the lake that day?
It was a mess out there, but that's typical Lake Erie. You know, we only have so many months to boat, so we have to put 12 months of boating into 3 months.
That's also Put-in Bay made the rounds on social media this weekend. Did you see that? Got a little bit wild on Put-in Bay.
Well, you know, in Put-in-Bay in the summer, they just call that Friday night or Saturday morning. You know, it gets a little crazy out there.
Okay, Bernie Moreno, tell us how the campaign is going. First of all, is Frank LaRose in or not? I can't figure it out.
I'm not sure. You know, that really doesn't affect me. I don't control that. He obviously affects Matt Dolan much more than me because I'm the only outsider business person in the race. But the campaign's going really well. We just announced today, Hugh, that we raised $2.2 million in our first quarter. That's all from individual donors, nothing from me, none of my personal money, no super PAC money. And 1.3 million of that was from Ohio donors, which is a record for a first quarter GOP candidate in Ohio. And by comparison, the last time I ran, we raised 750. So we almost doubled from Ohio donors how much we raised. We're really, really proud of that.
That's a big number. That is a very big number. What are you going to spend it on? Because it's interesting how campaigns are changing. It used to be all television. Now television doesn't work anymore. Radio works and social media work. How are you spending the money?
Well, that's what we'll do later in the year. Right now, we're focused on building a war chest to make certain that we spend as little as possible in the primary and really save as much of our ammunition for the general election. You know, taking out Sherrod Brown's not going to be easy. I'm pretty confident that I can unite the party behind my campaign. That's why we've seen such incredible fundraising success in Ohio. We also have over 100 grassroots leaders all over the state, literally in every county in Ohio that have endorsed my campaign. I'm really, really proud of that. So we're going to have an army to take out Sherrod Brown. He's been there way too long. As you know, Hugh, he doesn't represent Ohio's values. He votes more like a Massachusetts or California senator than an Ohio senator.
Bernie Moreno, I asked you in the one debate we did, and I'm going to come back and invite you and Matt Dolan, if he gets in, Frank, to do debates in Cleveland and Columbus. I asked you what's in it for Warren, and I really got to ask you what's in it for Warren right now, because over the weekend, some travel site rated Warren as the most miserable city in Ohio, which is not fair. We have the hot dog shop, so we're never miserable. But what will you do for northeastern Ohio that's kind of the burnt over area of the industrial emptying out?
Well, there's still great companies in Warren. I was at Warren Fabricating the other day. Great company. They do amazing work there. They're actually building the beams for the new JP Morgan Chase headquarters in New York City. So what we have to do is we have to bring manufacturing back to places like Warren, Ohio. What we've done, people like Sherrod Brown, who've been in D.C. too long, have sold out our middle class. We've given rise to the Chinese middle class instead. We need to encourage companies to come back to places like Ohio. And we do that, Hugh, by having incredibly abundant and affordable energy. And if we can unleash and be energy dominant in America, that will be incredibly worthwhile for places like Warren, Ohio.
So talk to me a little bit about foreign policy, Ukraine in particular. The president is vetoing Ukraine membership in NATO today. He ticked off the Brits already today. What do you think about Ukraine? What do you think about Joe Biden's leadership on that issue?
Well, you can't use Joe Biden leadership in the same sentence in any context, but certainly not with Ukraine. I mean, what he's done is he's created a quagmire. It's a man-made quagmire. First of all, it should never have happened. If President Trump were in office, it would not have happened. Even somebody who doesn't like President Trump can agree on that. It would never have happened. Should never have happened. And instead of arming Ukraine before the invasion or doing the things necessary to prevent the invasion, he basically ignored it. He's created this quagmire. First, no tanks, no planes, then planes, and now cluster bombs and NATO membership. The reality is we should be leading peace talks. We got to figure out a way to de-escalate this crisis to make certain that Ukrainians aren't dying. So we should be the country leading that, not China. Biden has been completely absent. It's a disgrace. And let's hope we get President Trump back in there in 2025 so we can fix this thing once and for all.
Bernie Moreno, you are from a communist country. Basically, Venezuela is now a communist country. What do you think Putin's Russia would do to the Ukrainians if he were to win that war and take over their entire territory?
Well, to clarify, I'm from a neighbor of a communist country.
Oh, Colombia. I'm sorry, Bernie.
That's okay.
Colombia. Yeah.
That's okay. But
not
that's
a communist country.
Not yet. But we do have a new president that just took over that's taking Colombia in that direction. But you know what communism does. We've seen it all over the world. It destroys countries. The reality is Putin's not going to take over Ukraine. What we have to do is go in there and de-escalate the crisis, get this thing resolved, stop the deaths, prevent World War III. U.S. leadership with a strong State Department can do that, and that's what I'm confident we'll do when we take over the White House in 2025.
All right, now, if we have these debates between Bernie Moreno, Matt Dolan, and Frank LaRose, if he's in, I'm going to bring up school choice out of the box because Ohio, and I think Matt Dolan had something to do with this past universal school choice. I applaud that. What do you think of that initiative and that bill?
Well, absolutely. I mean, education is a great equalizer. My kids had school choice. Your kids had school choice. The reality is we got to give school choice to all parents. And for certain, that is something that should happen. But of course, at the state level, Hugh, the federal government shouldn't be playing a role in education. That's the most local issue that exists in politics. We got to work to get rid of the Department of Education, and certainly at the beginning, what I call defang it. These policies that come with the money that's given from the federal government to school districts is really problematic. So we got to work to get rid of those conditions that come with federal money, and eventually get the federal government out of education completely and let local communities, parents, be in charge of their kids' education.
So, Bernie, where were you educated when your parents got out of Colombia and brought you to the States? Where did you get educated? How did you become successful in the car business and then high tech?
Well, so elementary school, I was at Catholic school, St. Coleman's in Fort Lauderdale, actually in Pompano. Then I went to high school, then college. I went to, am I allowed to say this on the show without the camera breaking? I went to the University of Michigan because I wanted to be in the car business. I wanted to be the chairman of General Motors. So if you're a Colombian kid growing up in South Florida and you want to be the head of General Motors, there's only one place that you go, and that was the University of Michigan. And that's where I met my wife and then went to work for General Motors right out of school.
That team up north, though, you're not rooting for them anymore, are you?
No, my son went to Ohio State. We're all in Buckeyes. It's all about Ohio, Hugh.
Okay, just making double sure about that. So, Bernie, out of the University of Michigan, what did you do?
So I went right to work for Saturn Corporation. Remember, Saturn was about changing the car business, redefining the car business, basically an outsider's view of how do you do automobile sales and service. But the corporate world rewards you by moving you. So we kept getting moved. Bridget and I didn't want to keep doing that. We wanted to start a family and put down roots. So I met a car dealer out of the blue from Boston who asked me to run one of his dealerships. I'd never worked in a car dealership in my life. And he handed me the keys and said, hey, you're in charge. You're the general manager. And that was the extent of the training program.
Wait, which part of Boston was this?
This was a company called Herb Chambers. So I lived in Andover, Mass.
Okay, because I'm going to say, you take a Columbia kid who went to Michigan, you put him into Boston, I'm not sure you're going to connect with the customers very well, right?
Yeah, but you know what? We were extremely successful. It was one of his most successful dealerships. Eventually, I became his vice president, helped him grow like crazy. And then 18 years ago, I got the call to buy a small little struggling dealership in Cleveland. And that's how I ended up in Ohio 18 years ago.
Oh, that is a terrific story. Bernie Moreno, keep coming back. Good to see you this morning. Enjoy the summer on Put-in Bay. They call it Friday night. That's funny. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned. Bernie, what's the website?
It's BernieMoreno.com. And Hugh, let's keep it going. If your listeners can throw in $5, $10, they can do that right on the website, BernieMoreno.com. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Bernie.